Hey guys, so I want to deal with the USA wars because it's kind of complicated because there's more than one thing going on and there's lots of elements that crisscross in between because this tapestry of information I've been given is like so tightly woven. It was really hard for me to like separate out and go, okay, so where do all these pieces fit and everything? So I'm just going to try and do that for you. So this is the USA wars and also the deception and the left behind. Okay, so this is based on vignettes and listening to God, and all of it's pulled together. Okay, so if you are watching these in order, you have already been introduced to the USA war, and you already understand that frilly eagle thing that is the spirits, so many people dying, that breaks the hearts of America, okay? And you understand that MC Escher aspect of style of art. So I believe that when this occurs, the Americans are going to feel like they are in an optical illusion or feel like they're in a trapped and surreal situation, okay? I was also given many other elements to this war, including the purpose and the consequences. And this twists in even back as far as some of my language dreams and some of my older dreams. So it's kind of like all of it zoomed into perspective once I got these last bits, you know? So here we go. I was shown a huge but brief human uprising that was before a war. And initially I thought that had to be before this war that's the first war. But I'm not sure anymore. Okay, I think that could be just a war. Then looking back, it was not specified which war, but the original war that I was shown was in my USA invasion dream in 2021. That was a 4 to 6 week war and then a false peace, and then a rapture 2 to 3 weeks later. Now, after my language dreams, I knew that in the middle of this war, a deception would come and people would have to make a choice to follow a man up the stairs that look like the way to heaven, or to keep following the smaller path and walk with God to heaven. And it was a deception for sure, because I remember in the dream that the stairs were so much more attractive to people. Okay, so I knew that this war that was in the mountain dream had nothing to do with the 7-year tribulation. It was just a war, okay? Wars happen, right? Okay, now I received a different dream in 2020. That showed the USA was completely annihilated, and our house was the only house standing in our whole neighborhood. And in that one, I heard U.S. will be in war for 7 years. And I knew instantly that was the 7-year tribulation, that U.S. would be in constant war for that whole 7 years. Okay, then we've got the 7-year war. I had no sense of what month it was, what season it was. It was just the dream. I didn't have any of that sensory connection with it. But in the 4 to 6 week dream, I did have a sensory connection that it was November, December. It was Christmas was around the corner, and it felt like, you know, Christmas, but we hadn't decorated yet. And where we specifically live, there's rules because it's a gated community, because, you know, people kidnap like crazy down here. There are rules that you can't put up your Christmas stuff until after Thanksgiving Day. So I knew that Christmas was around the corner, so it must have been Thanksgiving Day or before for this other war to have occurred. So that does kind of fit in the sweet spot of the calendar information, if you have watched that one. Then we've got later I was given a dream of a November war, Heshvan 11, November 11, November 11, and it was going to be bombing and nukes, okay? So in the first war, I'm going to just call it like the first war and the second war, because the second war to me is that 7-year war, and the first war is the shorter war that seems to have a fake peace involved. Okay, so the first war in my language dream, there was this hill, and halfway up there was a choice to be made. On the left was heaven, and on the right were the stairs that were so appealing, right? Now, here's the thing that connects all of this stuff together. In that language dream, I knew that there was a deception, and it was a trap for Christians if they chose to take the stairs, okay? And So basically, those that take the bait would essentially be saying, I have more faith in men than I have in God. And this deception was somehow related, at this point, this is all I knew, was somehow related to the fake Messiah and to Trump. And there was some, now understand the fake Messiah and the Antichrist are two separate people, and I'll do a video on that eventually. It has been made known in these recent listening sessions with God, though, that the huge deception is brewing, and it is related to the false Messiah. In an earlier video about the kings, it was pointed out that Biden was in a very fancy black carriage with the two other people, and they allowed the White House to be annihilated, a staged but devastating event. Then the next image was Santa surfing in his red hat and red velvet shorts and no shirt, and he was on a huge wave, and a few days later I was told that Christmas was canceled and the wave was an invasion. Then I was shown the Lion of Judah and the face of Jesus and heard no fear. Jesus has us, have no fear. Now, in my language training dream, I had the Chinese stamps that were flying toward me. And remember, they came to spell out, we will be surrounded by boats and war chariots, invaded and overpowered, and subjects to the ruler Qi. Then I heard Christians jailed, and I was shown Putin's face. Then a huge bright light that was asteroid-shaped was shown to me, and I connected that mentally to the December Geminids meteor showers. Okay, then I saw a huge eye in heaven and heard God has his eye on me and on us, and I knew this meant the faithful Christians. And then a large angel came flying toward me. Now, last in this vignette were some elements from a dream or vision or whatever that I had at the pool one day that involved a female pharaoh headdress, and essentially what was being told was, those that have been raised in this society that have no truth, that overcame and understand truth, those are the faithful, and God has his eye on us. So now I'm going to pair that with this information. My sister-in-law also has prophetic dreams. She lives out in the country in Ohio between Akron and Mansfield. And she had a dream that there was a huge explosion. A bomb, it went off, and it was so large that it shook their entire house like an earthquake. In the dream, it jolted her awake, and she knew in her dream that war had started. Okay? Then, on a different dream she had, everything was peaceful, and then she saw the UN soldiers coming up over their rural area, like across a big field. And before the UN soldiers got to their house, they were raptured. So it seems to me there's going to be a nuking and a big invasion, but once the UN pops their head into this picture, rapture could be expected. And this will trigger the tribulation, because as soon as the worldwide rapture happens, the major church and the half-borns are gone, boom, that's it, tribulation starts. Now, in a great stroke of encouragement, more information was given about this war on the following day. So I think it's really encouraging that there's hope in the midst of all of this. So that was when I got the fig vignettes. And so basically I was told why the U.S. was going to fall and how the good figs were going to be saved and raptured, and the bad figs were going to be not saved, and they would be left behind, and either rebels or wicked. Okay. And then I heard, thanks, love my hair, Fred Astaire. So that was this is most likely where the rapture fits in. Then I was given a vignette that was super interesting about the rebels and being left behind after the rapture. So this one, that's all reviewed just so you can kind of get the basic storyline of where this all fits, okay? So I was shown a car driving from the perspective of the driver or the passenger, just like you're in the car. And it was a car on a Florida city road, and it was bustling, and there were traffic lights. And I drove the car off the main road and had to make a U-turn type of thing. And it's like a little popular thing here where you go around a big grassy embankment, and then you can go down either a side road where shopping is, or you can go down and be in a neighborhood. Okay, this happened to be a neighborhood, so you did this like weird U-turn thing around the grassy embankment into the neighborhood. Now the neighborhood was not desirable though. It was super low end, and it reminded me of a neighborhood we first looked at when we were shopping with our first realtor. We went through 3. So the first realtor took us to this neighborhood in Coral Springs, and the Coral Springs is quite a bit south of us. But when we first started looking for houses, that's the very first neighborhood we went to. And there were no trees and no shrubs, and it was just like faded pink, dated Florida style houses. Like, I was not a fan at all. I was like, And the grassy embankment areas here, they're always super well manicured and really pretty, and like 90% of the neighborhoods. And this neighborhood just had grass, and you could literally see like, oh, yep, there's the road. It was just so bland and not well appointed. Like, it just felt very bald, I guess, this grassy area. So then when we got into these actual houses though, they were like molded and they stank and really rough, like, ugh. And in those neighborhoods, instead of people parking in their driveway or parking in their garage, there were so many families crammed into one house that they were parking all over their grass. So everyone's grass was covered with cars, and then in front of their house would be covered with cars and their driveway. It was insane. And so inside each house, one smelled like mold, one smelled like cigarettes, and one actually had drugs in there, like just laying out. You could walk through the house, take some drugs, whatever. Like, it was insane. So it was very pitiful. Like, it was intolerable to me. I would never agree to live in something like this. And we don't live in like the nicest neighborhood or anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's a level at which I'm like, I'm not doing that. I have children, and we need to be in a safe place. So anyway, this car was on this road, and my mind was drifting how awful this place was. And then I hear this very curious phrase, which was, she would sometimes have me drop her off in a circle smoothie. And I was like, all right, that's a puzzle I got to figure out. So then at this point, right after the circle smoothie words, then I see Brother Paul's face from Brother Paul 777, okay? And I was like, whoa, what's up with this, right? So then I heard deception around aliens, and then I heard decipher, to crack, meaning I needed to crack this code, and this related to the deception around aliens. By this, and by cracking this code, then I knew specifically that the Christians that would be left behind would have been the ones that believed the alien storyline, pairing that with Brother Paul's dream and my other dreams where Brother Paul is inserted. That helped me to understand that the deception comes before or mid U.S. War I and helps to launch the Jewish false Messiah. But these people believe the story, and they believe the deception, okay? These people are left behind, and they will be able to watch regular life go on across the bland grass, because the view of these houses, the front, you like step out your porch, is like, oh, there's the city, and gosh, it's so nice over there, and it's just so nasty over here. And that's your view. You don't have any bushes or trees that give you a barrier that make you feel like, well, at least we're in our own little neighborhood, and over there's the city, So that was such a strong association to me to my little boy rescue dream, because where they were staying was so nasty, and then where I had come from and he came to see if someone could help him was so luxe and so nice. So that's kind of that same concept of like the Christians who are captured or who are kept or who are left behind because they believe the alien deception, they're going to be in like total garbage housing and used as a labor force, which that stinks. Okay, so I know this is not part of the faithful group. This is part of what I would call acquainted Christians. They're backslidden, or they have gone to church and they have maybe not gone to a healthy church. So they don't really know the Bible, but they feel like they're in the Jesus club. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, these people, I'm going to break down what was in the visuals of this dream and vision thing. So the pink houses, they're kind of that puke pink, like Pepto-Bismol pink. They're horrible. So the color of old love, these people loved their old life more than they loved Christ. So they drifted back to their old life. The location of the homes, they could see the city, but they were not really part of the city. Okay, just like the little boy dream. The grassy area was sunken, and this means that it was in a flood zone. So here, that's like the world's worst place to live, because it will flood if you're in a flood zone. In Coral Springs, that actual word, because it was brought to me in the dream, it means skeletons come forth. What? Coral Springs, skeletons come forth. So that means their true hearts, or the skeletons hiding in their closet, will be revealed. Why are they revealed? Their shame is revealed because they're left behind. They might have looked like Christians, but they did not love Christ. They did not come to Christ fully. They were not actually saved. So then I got this puzzle sentence, right? She would sometimes have me drop her off in a circle smoothie. So I broke that one down. Super interesting. She, the church, sometimes, so not regularly interacting with God, would drop me off, leave, or abandon. Circle, that's the symbol for a person's soul. Smoothie is taking ice, a coldness towards God, and it's taking various crushed, ruined fruits. So maybe they had fruits of the Spirit, but then they're crushed and ruined, and they're being blended with other products like milk, baby food, or maybe even other fruits, or maybe even other religions. Okay, so they're blended to become one, but the ice is the base of a smoothie. So they're cold towards God, okay, the true God. So combine this with the neighborhood and the deception, right? These are those that appeared to be Christians, like those raised in the Christian church. Maybe like they were raised to be Christians, but then they're like, oh, I'm going to live my own way. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't know if that's all weird. You know, they're not really bad or wicked people. They just don't really do the disciplines, or they might even have been trained out of it in college. They're like, oh no, it's been proven to me that, you know, this is true. And you know how they get. Well, if you're my age, you know how they get. All right. So anyway, these are the ones I believe that Putin is going to round up and jail. And I think their living quarters are going to be terrible. And the Jewish Messiah will help bring about the emotions for society to criminalize these Christians to the masses. And this was shown in the Nazi connection with the AII and all of that stuff. Okay, so back to the other things I was told, okay? How to avoid being in the pink puke houses and left behind. That's really what everyone wants to know, right? Nobody wants to be here for the tribulation, because that's like the world's worst thing. Okay, so I was given this. Set up your spiritual borders. At your borders, have cisterns at the edge of your city. Pray for protection all the way around the borders of your city. Now, there's some interesting hints in here. A cistern holds water, right? What kind of water? Natural water, like rainwater. Well, what is that? Symbolically, those are the words of Jesus, and that is the Holy Spirit. Those two together, that's water for us, for our soul, okay? So we need to stay read up, memorized, and praying the words of Christ. Read the words of Christ. Pray the Holy Spirit, not only over us, but over our places we live, over our cities where we live, over our friends and our family. And pray to the very borders of our city so that we can be in the cities that don't have a bomb drop. So then I heard those who don't submit, and I knew that meant to God. Those people, the stubborn, they love darkness. They don't submit. They are not afraid of darkness. If they love darkness, they will be kicked to the curb. And then this was followed by a single spoken word, and it was very loud and abrupt, and it was Tanya. And I was like, okay, gonna have to look into that. So I did crack that code. And this is actually super interesting. And maybe one of my all-time favorite Christian history stories. Okay, so I'm going to give it to you. Okay, the name Tanya is the American version of Tatiana, a Russian name. But in the Greek, the true origin of this name means she's a lady. I instantly connected this with Lady Liberty. And no coincidence that this is heavily associated with Russia, right? But in the Greek, there is a lady who was called Saint Tatiana, and she was honored by the Russian and Greek Orthodox faiths. This woman was from the Sabine tribes of people, which would take retaliation on any whistleblowers. I mean, this is deep, okay? I want you to think about this in context of her paralleling what's going to be going on in our near future, or those that are left behind's near future, okay? So her people take retaliation on whistleblowers. These people came up with what they call the Sabine Frankist doctrine. If you're not familiar with that, you should read up on it, because that's what's running our world right now. Okay? And this is also called the enlightened disposition. Now, this is a super satanic doctrine. It has been employed for years. It's popular with Freudians, Satanists, and Chabad Jews. Okay, I'll just not say anything after that. The gist is they want to encourage people or allow them to be as bad as possible with no consequences, so that they will realize that their way, whatever their way is, but in this case it's like no-hide laws, stuff like that, so that their way is shown as the right way, okay? And this is encouraged and implemented by controlling both sides of the argument. You know, this whole thing you notice in the media where there's like everyone's villainizing the other side. So no matter which side you pick, you're villainizing the other side. That's their deal. That's totally their deal. And they want to basically control both sides of the argument so that they can control people's choices. Because if you take this and you take the indoctrination that's being forced at you, instead of just thinking and going, wonder what's going on, I'm going to look into it myself. But you just listen to what all the little news guys say and what the media says and what like movies show, you will be shoved into certain corners, okay? This is their deal. Okay, so that's her people. Her people were like not really great people, okay? But you can't determine where you're from, where you're born, okay? Now, Tatiana was born in Rome, and she was a daughter of a very wealthy Roman man. She was brought up in the Christian faith. So he was counterculture. Excellent. Okay. She was surrounded by these Sabine Frankist people and pagans in Rome. So that's the two things we're looking at constantly. The world leaders are all pagan, and then the other side of the coin is the Sabine Frankist, okay? So she's basically in our shoes. After time passes, she really grew to love the Lord and Scripture, so much so that she gave up on all of the material life that she was raised in, so that she could fully pursue Christ without all of the baggage of this world. So in this process, she renounced marriage so that she could be a female monk of sorts and live a very virtuous life, focusing only on Christ. She cared for the sick and visited those in prison, and she helped the poor. She was actually a deaconess too. So in the middle of this, there was a Roman Empire change. Somebody died, and so this little 16-year-old Roman emperor comes in to be in charge, and his name is Marcus Aurelius Severus Alexander. And he came to power in 225 to 235, and he was not about allowing Christians to hang out in their evil Sabine pagan world. He was like, no, y'all are messing this up. We don't like this at all. So he wanted the world to be 100% rid of all Christians. And so they were like rounding up Christians and just murdering them because they were like, we got to get rid of these troublemakers. This is really terrible. So they say in the history books, Christian blood flowed like water. That's what they say. So this is the pagan way. They're like, let's just get these troublemakers out of here and then we'll be fine, right? So Tatiana, of course, is not into this. She doesn't believe in her culture. She only is like 1,000% following God. And she was a deaconess, so people recognized her. She was like, you know, like, I guess you would say in a prominent position, okay? So she was rounded up and brought to the temple of Apollo. Here's where it gets great. Cerberus tried to force her to give a sacrifice to the idol Apollo. She instead began to pray, and suddenly there was an earthquake. All of the idols in the temple were smashed to pieces, and they fell on to the pagan priests in front of them. Demons were heard screeching and leaving the temple, and those that were present testified that there was a dark shadow that could be seen simultaneously leaving. Now, of course, this made the pagans more angry. So they tore her eyes out with hooks, and then she prayed loudly as she endured their torture, that the spiritual eyes of her tormentors would be opened. The executioners of these tortures said that 4 visible angels were around her, and as she was being beaten. Now a voice from heaven was heard speaking to her, and she requested again that her torturers be forgiven. 6 of them converted to Christianity, and for that they were also killed. Now wait, it gets better. I mean, that's like the beginning of this story. We're talking God shows up for this woman, okay? This is so cool. So the following day, Tatiana was brought to the judge, and all of her wounds were completely healed. They poked her eyes out with hooks. Her eyes are fine. I love this story. This angered the king, and so he had her stripped naked and beaten and slashed with blades, and then everyone could smell a wonderful fragrance fill the air. They stretched her out continuously, and they kept beating her, but those doing the beating had to be continually replaced out of exhaustion. Finally, they said that there was some invisible power that was beating them with rods, and they were not making any progress with her at all. The angels had taken the pain meant for Tatiana and turned it back into the tormentors. The next morning, she was taken back to the judge, and again she looked perfectly healed and even more beautiful than before. They begged her to make a sacrifice to the goddess Diana. She didn't disagree, so they took her to Diana's temple. So then when she was in front of Diana, instead of making an offering to the pagan god, she prayed, and suddenly a crash of lightning and a crash of thunder struck the idol and the sacrifices and the priests. Again, Tatiana was tortured for this, hung up and scraped with claws. They even cut her breasts off. And that night, the same thing happened. The angels came, they healed every bit of her, and when she returned to the king, she was healed again. This is cracking me up. So then the following day, they took her to the lions, and the lions came up and laid next to her, gently licking her feet. So they assumed that these lions must not have been hungry, and they told the handler to take the lions back. On the way back, the lion devoured the handler. The pagans decided that she must be a sorceress, so they cut off her hair because they thought this was how to cut off a sorceress's power. And they locked her up in the temple of Zeus. 3 days later, they came back to the temple, and they found Zeus shattered to pieces on the floor, and Tatiana was merrily singing and praising Jesus. Okay, this made the king furious, and they condemned her to be beheaded. And then they took her father and said he needed to also be beheaded because he is responsible for teaching her to love the Lord. This is funny. So, what can we learn here? We can learn here that in a time of full power, God will not be mocked. And we are marching straight toward full power, right? Okay. Clearly the angels surrounding her were not allowing her to feel the pain. Okay. So please don't fear this. If you get put in this situation, don't fear. I believe that because of her fierce love for the Lord and because of her understanding of his power, she just turned it and was like, boom, this is how we're going to play the game. And these guys, I mean, could you have any more mud on your face than these pagans who were like, you're going to turn and worship our gods? I just think it's great. Okay, so why do I tell you this story right after God talks to those who love darkness and says the word Tanya? The Russian, Sabitan, Frankish pagan related to martyr, God showed up and saved the people. This woman. Why do we want to know about this? I believe God is going to do a repeat. I think the persecution at the church at the end of those who are left behind will be in the tribulation, but God will show up. And I think that he will do something even more dramatic than Tatiana's story. Because we're talking the time of full power of God. He's like, you know what? End game. Guess what? You guys chose wrong. Let me show you. So notice these major things and stay encouraged. Okay, Tatiana was clearly not feeling the pain because her angels were reversing the blows. Okay. Tatiana's tent was healed each night. Tatiana was empowered to continue deconstructing of their false gods. Nothing was stopping her. She's like, oh, well, you're going to take me to your temple? Excellent. I will crash another room. And then Tatiana was bold and fearless because she knew God and his power. Okay. Now, if you know me, I have a video probably posted somewhere about all my near-death experiences, and in 2 of those, I was snatched out of my body. Well, maybe 3 or 4, I don't know. I was snatched out of my body and I did not feel the pain, okay? Because, yes, my body was actually getting trashed in a couple of situations, but I did not feel that pain. I did have to recover from them, but I did not feel that pain. And if you're Tatiana and you have angels ministering to you at night, you don't even have to recover from them. You're just like, oh, thanks for fixing me up. Let's go do another round. So I just think this is like the coolest story in the world. And I think this is going to be a redo because this is the only thing that I could find that made any sense in the world to me, why he would say Tatiana. So then, as another point of encouragement and reminder, right after this Tatiana story, I was told the mark of the beast is after the rapture. And I was told, you will come back and rescue the rebels. Some will turn. That means these rebels and this turning position, that has to be before the mark of the beast. Because once someone chooses the mark of the beast, that's that, right? Now, as a point of encouragement, should you be here for the war, okay? I was told that on October 25th, the angels are sent to you Christians to be seeing eye angels, like seeing eye dogs. They can see demons and protect and guide you. And then in my 4 to 6 week dream, we had several people come to our home, and we had power until the very end. Even without power, we miraculously could cook on an electric stove. And we had a never-ending stash of pasta. We had a house full of people that converted and were together through this event. So this is like 100% representative of the faithful being the example and the hands and feet, and then helping the half-born and bringing them in, and also the miraculous provisions that the angels and God is going to do for his own, because he will keep his own safe. Now, we never had trouble with the enemy like the warriors. Even though I got stopped by guards, they didn't even see the weapon that was in plain sight. We had groups of men that were in the neighborhood that were like, playing war games, but like we never saw any soldiers, just 2 guys hanging out. I mean, maybe there was more to it. I didn't see it all, but I'm just saying God's going to protect his people. Okay. Even if it looks hopeless, tap into God's mighty power and just be like, Lord, you got to do this thing. You got to get this done for me. Ask. He will provide. And I believe this time period is going to be super interesting. I mean, I hope there's like video in heaven, because, if I'm anointed and I have to like look down, I hope I can see, right? But I think that this is going to be like this huge show of God's power just before he takes it all down. you know, he'll let them have their little reign for a few years. Like, okay, all the Christians are finally gone. Let's live our perfect pagan life. And then when he comes to stomp on them, that's going to be that. I think that's pretty awesome. So I know there's a lot of information, and super important information though. And I just think, you know, God's here for us, and trust him. He's got it. No matter which category you fall into today, just do your thing. Just lean into him and do your thing and trust him, and he will use you in a mighty way. I promise you that. So hoopamani, keep the faith, armor up. See ya.